going on, everybody? I have like this weird thing that I really do not like using the glass table because I don't want you guys to see my legs. I don't know why that is. I'm just like I feel like my legs will look weird. You can see through, and if my knee buckles or something, y'all gonna look at me weird while I'm preaching. I don't know. This one just feels a little bit more secure. So I was just thinking about how silly that is, and I wanted to share it with you guys. God bless you, church. Can I be vulnerable with you guys for a minute? Yes, no, maybe so. So last year I preached twice, a grand total of 2 times. Felt like one. So I feel like I forgot how to prepare for a sermon. This morning, my iPad wasn't even charged. I prepared it on the laptop, but I transfer the notes usually to the iPad. My iPad wasn't charged. I was running all over the place. This is only my second sermon after having 2 kids. I don't know how I did the first one. Feels like it was ages ago. So I just want you guys to know that it was crazy for me to get to this point right now. So much so that this morning I felt nauseous. So, y'all gonna give me some grace? If it's a good sermon, it was God. If it's a bad sermon, it was my nausea. So, the title of today's sermon is Insecurity. Insecurity, and we are continuing our Rock the Boat sermon series. Can everybody say with me, rock the boat? Last week, Kadijah, come on. If you missed that sermon, you need to hop onto that YouTube and you need to get on that because she just gave us an amazing, amazing word that we could hold on to. How many people saw the clip on Instagram? You need to stay. Y'all ain't see the clip on Instagram. You need to stay alive. And she talked about the importance of us eating and tied that into Paul and the shipwreck and telling his men to eat so that they would stay alive. How many times do we let ourselves wither away because of the pain that we're experiencing? So I want to continue the series today. And Kadijah talked a lot about staying in the boat. I'm going to talk to you about getting out of your boat. Get out your boat. All right? So, when it comes to life, in every single person that is here, you, me, and people outside of here, as we grow as human beings, our hearts naturally build up ways for us to have a system of security to protect us, okay? Based on the past pain that we experience. And as we navigate the waters of life, and Jesus calls us out onto the water, stepping out into the water means we're going to have to rock the boat. Security is symbolic. The boat is symbolic of security. Who here is trying to go to, somebody tell me their favorite vacation spot that's not somewhere you could drive to, somewhere across the waters. Where you guys like to go? Cayman Islands. Oh, you fancy. All right. Now, are you walking over there? If you can't take a plane, what would you do? Take a boat. Nobody's swimming over there. We have any amazing swimmers here? Nobody is going to swim to a place that is across a large, vast place of water. So the boat is a place of security that takes us from one place to another, right? Is it safe to say that? You guys following me? And so in life, I want you to envision the fact that as human beings, when we experience pain and we navigate the waters of life, we build up these systems of security. We all have that childhood pain that we experienced, right? Great parents, many of us, but you still had some things that you went through, right? You still had some stuff that hurt you, some stuff that you hold on to, and maybe other great memories that you had as well. And naturally, our natural tendency as human beings is to build up security. Today, I hope to inspire you to fiercely attack any of those systems of security that you have in your life that lead to the complacency of not being willing to step out into the water. If I got a boat, why not use it? If I have a boat, why not use it? Well, what if God is calling you to walk out into the water? What if God is calling you to take a step of faith in your life and you are holding on fiercely to your boats? I want to start with a story. It's a pretty funny story of my daughter, Kaya. This happened maybe a year ago, I want to say, give or take. There was one day where she was running and in the house. And in our living room, there's like, the living room goes into another part of the living room that's just another room, but it's like it's connected. And then it goes into the kitchen. Then there's like a small hallway that leads to the door outside, but it also leads to the living room. So it's a circle. And what do kids like doing with circles? Running in them, right? Anybody got kids? Am I the only one, right? They liked, you create a circle. If you're not blocking that circle, they are going to run in it. And if you add another kid, forget about it. They will run around for hours. So one day, Kaya, she's running around this circle. And she's running and running and running. And all of a sudden, there's this table that's inside of the circle. And you guys already know where this is going. She's running and poof. Knocks her right on the side of her head. And she starts crying and crying. My poor little baby. Now, when we started to console her and got her back to the place where she felt good again, what do you think she did? She ran again. Did she choose another place to run? No, there's a perfect circle here. Why am I going to choose somewhere else? I gotta run on the circle. Now, this is the funny part. PA, can I use you for a second? I want you to pretend that you are a nice, beautiful table, okay? Give me all the table that you've got in you. Wow, that's a very nice table. That's a whole lot of table right there, okay? So, I want you to pretend that I'm Kaya. That's not that hard. I'm just male and much larger, okay? And so, now, this time when she's running by, I'm going to do this in slow motion because this was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Now when she's running by, when she gets close to the table, this is what Kaya does. Running normal. Oh, that table's... And she just keeps going and going and going, and she's fine. She didn't get hit by the table, but it was the Matrix... little Puerto Rican, Ecuadorian girl version. And she's just going all the way back to make sure that she's not hitting her head. And in that moment, I felt like, whew, God ever spoke to you through something so simple? Oh, man. In that moment, I saw this little girl who did not let pain that was caused to her stop her from doing what she was created to do, which is to play. Everybody knows that kids, their language is play. That's the thing that comes most naturally to them, play. And so she got hit by the table. She was smart enough to matrix out of the way when she ran by this time. But she never said to me, Daddy, I can't play no more. She didn't even decide to play in another way. She was bold enough to say, I can do this again. I'm like, God, why you gotta say all that? That's so deep. But it's true. How many times do we as parents or as adults, anybody out there adulting with me? How many times do we as adults allow the experiences that we have change us in such a way that we stop doing things that God created us to do? He said, stop talking about me. How many times did God specifically craft you with certain gifts and treasures that he built you with? Ways that he made you to be. And boom, you hit your head. And you say, I can't run like that no more. Kaya got hit by the table. She may have ran funny the next time that she ran. But one thing she knew was that getting hit could not steal her run. And so I think that encapsulates a piece of what the words is saying when it tells us to be like children, because I want to present to you that I think that faith is just spiritual play. I think that having faith is playing spiritually. And I don't mean that in a way to undermine what faith is. What I mean is that there's a lot of parallels in our spiritual lives and in God calling us to have faith. In order for us to be able to have faith, it's going to be a lot like play. You know, in order to play as a kid, you have to suspend your own belief to be able to truly have fun. How many kids are out there saying, well, I'm not actually flying when I'm pretending to be a superhero? How many kids are out there pretending to be their favorite character on a TV show and worrying about having their costume the exact same way? Kids don't worry about that. What they are, belief system, everything that's reality goes out of the window because I'm playing. And somehow, some way, as we grow up, we lose that. Right? We can't pinpoint an exact moment. It's not like Jawanza was just out there on the playground running around and one day he was like, man, I don't want to do this no more. I'm an adult now. It's just gradual. So much so that for every person in here, it's different. For some people, it was faster. For some, maybe you noticed a little bit, but for the most part, we don't. And so, we as adults grow up and we stop playing because life gets serious. Christians meet Jesus, they're on fire, and they lose faith because life gets serious. It can get, anybody ever had difficulty having faith? Am I the only one? Anybody ever been tested before? Where you're just like, God, are you really there? Are you with me? Do you still love me? Do you still have a plan for my life? In those moments, it's difficult to believe and yet God still calls us to faith. We have to be able to get to a point where, just like a child, it doesn't matter if I get hit, it doesn't matter if life is getting serious, I will still choose to have faith in my God. It doesn't matter what my circumstances are telling me. If God is telling me to step out into the water and walk, I'm going to walk. So, let's get into the word and talk about this boat. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 14. There's a story that many of you will know, and many of you have heard preachings and sermons about before. But it's a good old story, and it's been preached many times because it's a good story. Matthew 14, verse 22. And we'll be reading up until verse 32. Do we have it up on the screen? Yep. Okay, great. Matthew 14, 22 to 32. So, this is the story of Jesus walking on water. Immediately, he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come out to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Powerful. Sidebar. Don't let the power of stories that you've heard many times pass you by. This is powerful. Jesus spending time with the Lord, sending the disciples away ahead of him. I wonder if the disciples were like, "Wait, but how are you going to get there?" But knowing better, they probably were like, "All right, I guess he'll figure another way to get there." And he's casually walking on stormy water and taking a supernatural occurrence and trying to make it natural to themselves in the best way that they possibly can. They say, "It's a ghost." I wonder how many times God is trying to speak to us and we think it's something else that's not him. So, I want to take a look at Peter and the disciples. First of all, I want you to understand, before we even go ahead, their boat was good enough for them to be fishermen. It was good enough to get them across the sea. It was not necessary for them to walk with Jesus. I'm not saying it wasn't, I want you to understand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying it wasn't good enough for them to walk with Jesus. I'm saying it was unnecessary. This is a whole nother level. Sometimes we have things in our lives that aren't necessarily good or bad, but it was unnecessary. Had they had the faith and Jesus had called them all onto the water, what could have happened? They could have walked the whole way across. And this story would have been even crazier. He could have done a Moses part 2 and split the sea if he wanted to. You guys tracking me here? The boat was unnecessary. It was just there. It was the way that they were traveling. Now, it was good enough for them as fishermen. We know that many of them were fishermen, right? And so it was a natural part of their lives, and it was good enough for them to be fishermen, but now God was calling them to a new life. God was calling them to be disciples and to help him begin a whole revolution in this world that touched millions, billions of people up to us today. And so when we think of the security of the boat and what it provided for them, and we think back to what I was saying in the beginning, how we built up natural comforts in our lives for us to be able to live in the best way that we possibly can, I want to tell you today that there are things in your life that you think are absolutely crucial for your journey that God could just blow right past them if he wanted to. You think, oh, I'm going out into the water, I need a boat, right? Or now we got planes, so I need to take a plane, I need to take a boat. That's what you are limited to. If Jesus wants to get in the boat with you, he'll get in the boat with you. If he wants to call you to come walk out on the water, he'll call you to walk out on the water. But understand this. What you think is secure may be unnecessary to God. So, what is your boat? That's the question we have to ask ourselves today. What is your boat? And I think that there are 4 different types of boats that we will typically have as human beings. And I'll start off with this one. Anybody ever experienced some of this before or know what this is? Let's throw this one right here. It's a nice looking boat, right? Where can I put this? Let's do it this way. Can you guys read that? If not, I'll read it to you. Creature comforts. We all have our creature comforts. We have those specific things that we gravitate to, that we use to make us feel better in boredom, in pain, in anger, or whatever the case may be. And we believe in the power of these things to hold us up, to protect us. We get in the boat when we're frustrated. Who here got road rage? Keep it real. Nah, I know there's like 10 more hands that needed to go up. You're driving. Somebody cuts you off, almost hits you. Maybe you got your kids in the car. Instant. That's the one right there. Because now you're impeding not just my safety, but my children's safety. And because we grew up acting in a certain way or seeing a certain thing happening under certain situations, we saw how our parents reacted whenever they were upset and whenever they were angry. So when we get angry, when we get triggered, we do the same thing. And we hop on our boat. We hop onto that security. That thing that makes us feel like, oh, I can navigate this. I can navigate this pain. I can navigate this storm but I need to get on my boat first. This situation is triggering me. It's upsetting me. I don't like the way that you're speaking to me right now because my dad used to speak to me like that. I don't like the way you're looking at me now because I know that around here, people of my ethnicity get looked at crazy. So I'm getting triggered. So I need to hop on my boat because I need to feel secure. God, I know that you say you got me. I know that you say you love me. I know that you say, be angry and do not sin. But I'm leaning a little more into the be angry and trying to stay on the line of the do not sin. And it's hard. I'm not talking about this like it's easy. Let's not trivialize it. We're human beings, right? I get it. God gets it. We know that it's not something that's particularly simple. This one says, your coping mechanisms and habits. I was telling my mother the other day that when I was, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years old, I used to constantly go to the fridge when I was bored. Anybody ever done that? You don't even grab food. You just walk up to the fridge, you open it, look inside. I don't know what you think is going to happen. Like the juice is going to move. Minute Maid is going to say Minute Frayed or something like that. Instead, the milk is going to be emptier. Nobody else is in the house. I'm telling you, I was alone in the house. I'm so bored. I'm just walking up to the fridge, not even looking for food. It's habitual. There's things in our lives that we do out of habit. Some of them look a lot like these. Some of them look a lot like things that you do habits you got when you're triggered. And some of them might be creature comforts. Some of them might just be coping mechanisms. Things that make us feel better. A Band-Aid we try to put on a gash that is bleeding furiously. We've all got them. Or we all had them. And the thing about it is that when you try to put your security in these things that were never really truly made to take you across that sea, to take you to where God is calling you to be, to take you to the places in your life that God is calling you, and you try to sit or stand on these systems of security and feel as secure as you possibly can, all it takes is Lem running at me right now like he's going to tackle me to throw me off of this little thing right here. This was not built to hold my weight. This was not built to be something that takes me to the places that I need to be. It might make me feel better in the moment. But a lot of times what happens is you put your weight on it and you just end up looking silly. Because I'm basically standing on the ground right now. I'm separated by what? Maybe half an inch? And I think that this is more secure than I was when I was out here. And I'm so scared of these waters that God is calling me to navigate. I'm so scared of the storms and pain that surrounds this water that God is calling me to navigate. I'm so scared of what's going to happen to me. So I need my boat. I need the boat, God. You don't understand. And he's saying, walk out on the water. Step out. Many times, what happens is we want to look for natural ways of navigating a life that is supposed to be supernatural. We desperately want to hold on to natural ways to navigate life. And in order for us to be able to step out into the supernatural life that God is calling us into, you got to be able to do stuff like walking on water. Granted, it was never meant to be on your own strength. Because key point here, Peter says to Jesus, command me to come out to you on the water if it is you. Some of you, God is calling you to something that is scary to you. Some of you, God has been speaking to you about something that terrifies you. And that burning inside of you just won't go away. And the best you can do is try to ignore it. The best you can do is let time pass by and keep hearing him speak and just stay on your secure boat. But the thing about it is that in order for me to get off of this boat, like Peter, to walk on the water, you have to stand up in the boat. Anybody ever stood up in a small boat? Alicia, can you put up the image on the screen for me, please? There's this boat that they found in Israel in the waters. They call it the Jesus boat. There's no way to prove that this was actually Jesus's boat, okay? You guys can see that? And it took them years to be able to take it out of the water without damaging it. But this was an example of a boat that fishermen would use around the time of Jesus. Does that boat look like a Titanic to you? Now, they had a mast on it, and you could row on it. And maybe the boat that Jesus and them had was a little bit bigger. But the idea here is the same. These fishermen very likely had a boat similar to this. And I just want you to picture Peter having to walk on the water where they're sitting in this storm, rowing and rowing. And anybody rowed a boat before? It's hard. It sucks. And they're fighting against the storm, and Peter wanted to go ahead and walk on water. And I could imagine him standing up in stormy waters, already turbulent in the boat, and now adding more instability by standing up. You see, in order for you to be able to get out of your boat and walk, it's going to get unstable. And that stability that you were relying on will cause you to question whether you should truly step out. Because now all of a sudden, you're losing that security that you had previously. But I want to tell you today, I want you to know that if you never stand up, you can't step out. Maybe today, all God is calling you to do is stand up. Maybe today he's calling you to step out. Maybe today he's calling you to walk on the water. But either way, if there's something that God is calling you to, I would caution and encourage you to listen, to not let another day go by being scared of rocking the boat because you're too busy rocking the boat. My precious child, my precious boat, I need to keep it as close as possible. The security that you have will never amount to the security that Jesus is offering you. Amen? So, I have 3 questions, and we'll be closing soon. Are you walking in insecurity because you feel like you have some type of lack in some way, and so you can't rock the boat? Or are you walking in security because you feel good about the strength of your boat as you navigate these waters? Or are you walking in security because you walk with the one who made you and loves you more than you could ever know? Remember, in the beginning I said, with Jesus, the boat might be unnecessary. He might get in the boat with you. He might call you to walk on water. Either way, understand this. One of these people is afraid, one of them is oblivious, and one has their eyes focused on the master. One has their eyes on him, and they see, like Peter, they see him walking on water, and they say, if he is doing it, maybe I can too. I don't know what the other disciples thought in that moment, but Peter would have been the guy to say, hey, can I walk on water too? Because that's Peter, right? But imagine being bold enough instead of being too afraid. Maybe there was one disciple who was looking around at the storms and then sees this guy that they think is a ghost and is so afraid they can't see the miraculous that's happening in front of them. Maybe one of them was just like, nope, I'm good. I'm in this boat. We're good to go. Jesus, whenever you're done with Peter, we could be out so we could get to the next place that we need to get to. But Peter, oh, if we could be like Peter. Peter had the audacity, the boldness to see something that God himself was doing and to say, God, can I do it too? How many Christians live their whole lives Sunday to Sunday, never asking God, God, I see you doing that through other people. God, I see you working in other nations. God, I see you moving in people's lives. Can I do it too? Can I walk on water too? I see that's where you're walking. That's where I want to be. Can I be there with you? I know that out there, I know it's not about the walking on water. I just know that out there, I am where you are. Out there, I walk as you walk. You walk through me. Out there, it doesn't promise me that all my problems are going to go away. It doesn't promise me that life all of a sudden becomes easy, but it does promise you that it will become sweeter. It does promise you to walk in the supernatural. It does unleash all of the potential God placed inside of you in the way, in the manner, and the shape and form that he called you to live in it. So, many of you may be totally fine with what you have right now. But I want to ask you today, when was the last time that you asked more of God? When was the last time that you were willing to rock your boat a little bit to be able to step into what God has for your life? When was the last time that you yearned for more of him? I want to end with the reading of verse 32, just to reiterate what I just said. Verse 32 says, "And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased." We see Jesus just showing off with miracles here. He's walking on water. He causes Peter to walk on water. And he controls nature. When it is the due time for you in your life that God has appointed it, the storms will stop. There are going to be seasons when he will call you to walk on water in the midst of the storm. And there will be seasons where he gets into the boat with you and the storm just stops. The key of the both of those is this: be with Jesus. It's all about Jesus. If you're with Jesus and there's a storm, you're good. If you're with Jesus and you're in the boat, in the storm, he might just cause the storm to stop. But either way, be with him. I want you to prepare your communion. It is an emotional thing to take of the elements, because in it, we remember the greatest sacrifice of all. With that being said, I want you to lift up the bread. Lord, we thank you for your body that was broken for us so that we could live, so that we could walk in boldness and in truth, so that we could be with you. Thank you for your sacrifice. You may take of the bread. And in that same thought, Lord, we thank you for your blood shed to give us freedom so that we would walk in newness of life in you. We thank you for your sacrifice, Jesus. We thank you that you give us access, that you bring us close to you. May we be with you. You may take of the juice.